This is a story about jury duty. If you get one of those letters saying that you have to be on jury duty, all your friends are going to say, oh, this is the worst thing that ever happened. And they're going to come up with ways that you can get out of jury duty. And these are usually dishonest ways. And I say the opposite. I say jury duty is really interesting, and I recommend jury duty. It's way more interesting than normal life. Whatever you're doing, you probably do that every day, or you do that 5 days a week, and I don't care what it is. It can get a little monotonous. But jury duty will be something different, and it will be very, very interesting if you actually get on the jury. A lot of people get on jury duty and they never actually get on a jury. Actually, if you get on a jury, it feels like you accomplished something. They probably had 100 people there, I don't know, 80 people there, and then they shrunk it down to like 20 people. And did you get into that group? It's pure random, but it feels like, ooh, I kind of got into the elite here. And then if you actually wind up on the jury, one of the 12 people on the jury, you feel like, woo, woo, I'm cool. I got on the jury. I only have been on one jury, and it was years ago, back in the 1990s, and I still remember it. I remember it vividly. Um, and this is the story of that jury. Uh, it was a domestic abuse case, an assault case. And apparently it was kind of like low end assault because when we were being questioned in the jury pool, the prosecutor, she kept saying, did we realize that assault, you don't even actually have to hit anybody to commit assault. If you just scare the crap out of somebody, if you make them feel that you may hit them or you may physically harm them, that is assault. Um, anyway, I wound up on that, and we all had to agree, that we will obey the law. If we feel this was indeed assault, then we will vote for guilty. Well, it turned out this was, as I said, a domestic abuse case, and it was an old couple, and I mean, like maybe they had been married for 50 years. I think they were both probably 70 years old or something like that. The old man had assaulted the old woman, and she had brought charges against him. And this was kind of heartbreaking for the family. Just sitting there watching, you could see it was heartbreaking. The old man had a mother. It was amazing, but he had like a 90-year-old mother. This little tiny Irish lady with white hair was sitting there watching the whole thing. And it turned out the old man was living with his mother now. He had been thrown out of the house after this incident, and he was now living, and a divorce was in progress. The grown children came and testified, and according to all the testimony, including the testimony of the wife, there was no pattern of abuse. The old man had never laid a hand on his wife, and she agreed that had never ever happened. So it wasn't that kind of a relationship. It all started at Thanksgiving. There had been the old couple had all their grown kids and all the grandchildren over for Thanksgiving. And while that was going on, while the big feast was going on, a kitty cat appeared at the back door. And the old man felt happy, and he went out there and he fed some turkey to that kitty cat. And you know what they say: if you feed an animal, that's your animal. And the old lady, she had objected from the very beginning. She did not like cats, and here she was, and just sure enough, the cat showed up every day, and the old man would go out and feed it every day. Well, what the old lady said was that cat is not allowed in the house, and the old man said okay to that. That's okay. And one day he would like open up a can of food and put it into a bowl, and he would take it out and put it on the porch behind the house there, like the back door, and right there there's a little porch, and that's where he would feed the cat. And one day it's morning and it's pouring down rain, just a downpour, and I feel like I ought to say raining cats and dogs, but anyway, that's what it was like. And the old man, he comes out into his kitchen worried about his cat, and the rain is slanting right into that back porch, so there's not a dry spot. And there is his cat, and the cat is like hanging on the screen, and it's just drowned rat. It just looks awful. So um, he takes that cat and he brings it inside, and he takes it down in the basement. The basement is like his man cave. There's a pool table down there. And then he gets that food, and he takes the food down there, and he feeds the cat underneath the pool table, just in case the old lady finds out about it, because maybe she won't realize the cat is even in the house. Well, what happens, the old lady, I don't know why, she gets suspicious, and she comes out in the kitchen, and she sees the cat stuff is, the can is open, and she looks out on the porch, and there's no cat, and there's no dish out there, and she turns around, and there's the basement door, and the basement door is ajar, and it's normally not open. So she's very suspicious, and she goes down the steps, and there he is. She's been married to him for like 50 years, and she can read his eyes, and she says, "Where's that cat?" And he lies. He says, "What cat? There's no cat." And she knows he is lying, and she is just mad as hops, and she bends over, and she looks under the pool table, and she sees the cat. She sees that cat, and she goes after that cat. She's going to grab that cat, and I don't know what she's going to do, but she's going to get that cat out of her house. And he is scared and angry himself, and he thinks that she's going to hurt his cat, and he grabs his wife. He grabs her wrist like this, and bang, he's got it behind her back. And as soon as this happens, he realizes, oh my God, and he lets go. He lets go. But by then, he's going to hurt her. He's grabbed her wrist really hard. And she goes right over to the phone. There's a phone down there in the basement, and she dials 911. And that guy ends up in jail. In Iowa, the law is, if there's an assault case, if there's suspicion of assault, and the cops, when they came, they found there was like redness around her wrist. They could see where he had gripped her. That guy spends the rest of the day and the night in jail. That's the law. And when he got out, the next morning, he had not been allowed to go back home, and he had moved in with his mom, and he'd been living with his mom ever since, and his wife had instituted divorce proceedings. And this was having like a heartbreaking effect on the family. You could just see the grown kids, that they loved their dad and they loved their mom, and this was just horrible. Well, then that was the case. So we go into the jury room, and right away, you don't really know each other until then. You start knowing each other as soon as you get in the room. And we voted immediately. And I thought, this case, oh, for God's sakes, I mean, what the poor old man. And so, of course, I voted not guilty. And I thought everybody would vote not guilty. And what happened was, half of us, 6 of us, voted not guilty, and the other 6 voted guilty. And their reasoning was that technically this was indeed assault. I mean, the guy had, and according to his own testimony, he had gripped her, and there was this little red mark there, so that's assault, and it seemed like everybody was kind of sympathetic to the old man, but, technically it's assault. And the other half of us, the other half of the jury are, we feel funny about doing this. Well, we just, argued and discussed all the rest of the day, and then we had to go home. And we could not, you have to get 12 out of 12. It's hard to be on a jury, because every single person has to agree. So I went home, and came back the next morning, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how long is this might take a long time. And right away we re-voted. We voted again. And during, I guess, that time, people had changed their votes. So instead of being 6-6, split right down the middle, all of a sudden it was 10-2. 10 of us said not guilty, and 2 said guilty. And the reason was, one guy, he was very, very, very sensitive to the whole issue of assault. I'm not really sure why, but I mean, just assault is assault, and the law is the law. But as soon as we started, kind of talking about it, he found out it was 10-2. He gave up, and all of a sudden it's 11-1. And the last holdout, the last woman, her thing was, she was a cat hater. She did not like cats, and she would never, ever, she couldn't even imagine allowing a cat in her apartment. And she had a boyfriend, and if he ever did something like this, she would just dump him. She was just, but she too caved. She too caved, and we all unanimously voted not guilty. And the thing I think, besides the fact that she was just one juror, the thing I think that really changed it for her was the youngest guy on the jury. He was like maybe 19 years old, And that morning he made like a little impassioned speech, and he said, at least in his view, that old lady was using us, the jurors, to hurt that old man. She was a vindictive old lady, he thought. She is trying to harm him. She's trying to use us to harm him. He doesn't deserve it. And I, for one, am not going to be used. And it was like a little scene in a movie. And that is the thing. I don't even know for sure if that was a fair thing to say, but that was the thing that caused the woman who hates cats to change her vote. I think maybe that guy had never been that eloquent or that successful with eloquence in his whole life, but he was on that occasion. And so we voted again, and it was 12-0, and not guilty. And that old man never got convicted of assault.